I'm Dr. Sarah Olivo.
And I'm Dr. Liz Seidler, and you're listening to College is Fine, Everything's Fine. Okay, listeners, we are here with another Microdose episode on a follow-up to an interpersonal skill that we have already taught you, Dear Man, which is about getting what you want in terms of your needs met in relationships. And now we're going to talk about a very important skill that you can use with a lot of different relationships in college, which is called the G.I.V.E skill, another acronym, and really is about how do I build and maintain positive relationships with other people. And Sarah, like what I'm trying to think about, if listeners are listening to this, like when would they want to use this skill?
Well, okay, backing up a little bit. I think part of the reason we are trying to give this microdose episode is because we've had so many conversations around communicating with parents lately. And you and I were like, oh, we'll just refer back to the give fast skill set. And we realized ruh-roh, we probably mentioned it, but it wasn't really clear there. So one of the ways, obviously, that people could use it is sort of in this cluster of episodes we've just had when they're trying to be in a, keep a relationship with a parent. And then we should also mention give is a pair. It comes with another skill that we'll call the fast skill that'll come up. But this is the part of the pair where it talks about having a relationship that is important to you and what do you need to do to keep it strong. So yeah, when talking to parents, even if you are having to come up with a compromise, then the give skill set would be really good. I also think the give skill set is good with any sort of roommate situation. And I do always, this is one of those skills where like, I don't care who I'm working with, I'm probably going to work this in because I think the give and fast combo are good for any sort of new romantic relationship or just kind of trying to pay attention to that balance of what you're giving to the other person and also what you're holding true in terms of your own needs.
Right.
Yeah.
And a good question to ask yourself, like, is this an opportunity that I probably should think about using Give, is asking yourself, like, how do I want the other person to feel about me after we have an interaction? And that sometimes there are situations in college where you might not like the other person, right? But you're in a relationship with them. I can think about a supervisor that I had on an internship where I really did not like them, but I knew that they were going to be giving me an evaluation at the end of the internship, and then I had to keep him liking me.
Yeah.
So I had to be mindful of my tone of voice, my nonverbals, a lot of things we're going to talk about as we teach you the skill. So I think even that question, there are a lot of relationships that you need to keep positive, either because you care about the person, want them in your life, or they're in a position where they are going to give you something or not give you something.
Right, where it's going to be more effective for you to keep that relationship strong, to get your own like goals or needs met, for sure.
Right. So why don't we get into it? And like, I feel like a lot of times when we're teaching skills, it's sometimes also to be mindful of like what non-give is. And because that might be a sign that you're
a pivot.
Yeah.
Pivot.
Okay, so let's go through Give. Sarah, you want to start with the G?
I'll start with the G. Yeah, as you've seen, these DBT skills do love some acronyms. Is that what it's called? An acronym? I always feel like
we have done this so many times on this podcast because I struggle with acronym abbreviations.
Yeah,
I think it's an acronym though.
Okay, I'll cut that part out if it's
something else.
All right. Okay, so we all know at this point that Liz and I love an acronym, DBT loves an acronym, and this one is no different. So when we say give, it really stands for 4 different things. And the first one is G, so being gentle. And that sounds really obvious at a certain point. But I think that oftentimes when a conversation can get heated or something else, people forget that they can still do things in a gentle manner. And it's a simply way of saying being nice, be respectful, no attacking, staying away from those, all or none words like always, never. What am I forgetting?
So I think that so Sarah says 2. I think there's like 4 ways to know if you're being gentle. So she said, not attacking,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is using maybe language that is accusatory towards someone else. Being non-judgmental. So not using words like always or making interpretations or assumptions about the other person. And then the other two things would be to decrease any like threatening. Obviously, you wouldn't be gentle if you're threatening someone, but kind of saying like, if you don't get your needs met, like if you don't do this, right, then this is what's going to happen. That would be an example. And the last one in DBT, they say sneering. And what we mean by that, that's the nonverbal piece to be mindful of, right? Are you eye rolling? Are you sucking your teeth? Like what really is going on with your face that's not signaling socially that you're being gentle? So it's like, so stopping the attacking kind of language or insults, being non-judgmental, being mindful of like aggressive nonverbals, and being non-judgmental. So those are like the four things that I would say.
And I think that last kind of nonverbal, non-sneering goes right into the I, which is acting interested. I mean, the word act is important here.
Yes.
You might genuinely, I'm sure when you were talking to your supervisor, weren't interested, but you're just nodding along at certain things. And so I think just showing, like making good eye contact, you're not shuffling papers around or looking at your phone while they're talking. Just again, those nonverbal cues that show that what that person is saying isn't important. We want to take all that, put that to the side, and just have this be a conversation between two people, not while, you're sort of doing other things. I know that's one of my biggest, like when I feel the least listened to is when somebody is doing something else while I'm talking. It's like such a clear message that this other thing is more important.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, the V, and we could probably do a whole episode on the V, but the V.
Oh gosh, you're right. Okay, we'll bring another microdose episode out.
The V.
Damn it, we just keep on finding things.
I know. The V is about validation. So I think and there's a really good video I can put in the show notes that I think really quickly explains validation. But validate is how do I communicate to the other person that I understand what they're thinking or feeling makes sense. And you can do this through words and actions, right? Like validation might be like you see a friend and they're crying and you might not say anything, but you kind of like rub their back or grab them a tissue. Like that would be an action step without using words that you understand that they're upset. Validation with words, and this is where I think people get a little stuck on this, is they assume validation is agreement. And really when you are validating, you are trying to communicate to someone that you get it, right? You can kind of see from their perspective why they might feel a certain way. You can recognize through paraphrasing. I think that's a really good way to validate, is to just almost pair it back to the other person. It shows that you did what Sarah just said. You were listening. And it's showing that you're trying to get at what they're experiencing.
Yeah, I think to your point, when you mentioned just like, oh, I totally get it, is such a quick, it's like there's a couple of hacks, right? Sometimes it's just being like, I see how you got there. And you're not saying like, I agree with how you got there. Just like, oh, I kind of see how you got there. Or because I think so often when you're not doing the validation piece, it can quickly feel like an attack, even if you're being supportive sometimes. So, and this is a way that I think people automatically feel a bit calmer when you're saying like, oh, okay, the story you're telling, I understand it's making some sense to me. So, but I think that word validation can be hard for some people. It's also one of those words that's out in the ether everywhere, and people are probably, probably a little sick of it. But I hate it when a good word has gone bad.
I agree. And
this is one where I'm like, no, like stick with it. This is really important and huge. It's probably one of the bigger, like of all the letters, that one's always like more bold in my mind than these other ones.
And even Sarah, the way that the language you use, I always say with validation, some people are like, I don't want to sound like a therapist, right?
And by the way, we don't want you to sound like a therapist either. I don't even like sounding like a therapist.
So you just have to kind of like what language could it, like that sounds true to me? Because it can be invalidating if you're trying to validate, but you're not really sincere about it, right?
Right.
Like it's not really vibing with like your personality or something like that.
If you're not a schmoopy person, don't say, don't try schmoopy validation.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that's where maybe being more concise or kind of, and also validating through actions, through your nonverbals. There are a lot of
Yeah.
ways to provide validation that doesn't have to be a feeling statement.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. I think
I'm
on
just
that
trying to
note,
picture all the like goofy ways that even I cringe when people, um, get a little too mushy with it. So, and then last but not least is the use humor, just lightheartedness, trying to have an easy manner. So that's the easy manner.
mhm.
And I think anytime you're delivering something and you have a sense maybe of having a smile on your face, or if it's a harder conversation, you might not be smiling. That might be a little weird to be like coming on with a hot topic and you're just smiling as high. It's gonna be probably like a little crazy. So just think about what an easy manner is for you, right? That's just something where it's saying, try to give a lighthearted sense of things. I mean, besides smiling, what would you do?
I think this is an example. Easy, I would say easy manner again with your words. Like, okay, what am I actually saying? And also, what does my body language look
Mhm.
like? Right. So, this is where you really want to kind of think about, okay, how am I love this idea of like socially signaling. So, like, what am I kind of signaling with my body and my face that might kind of, and usually that's like some level of movement. I know I kind of move my hands a lot. You guys might not know that I'm doing it all the time.
And for reference, she's waving them in a whirlwind sort of pattern as she's doing this, just to give you an image.
The more rigid you are, right, the less, the more likely you're going to signal like potentially and even inadvertently, like you're kind of attacking or you're like more emotional. So there's little ways, like
Mhm.
even for me, like when I'm about to even dear man my kids potentially that
Mhm.
to stop doing something, I'll like kind of like be like, ouch, right? And they'll be like,
Yeah.
did you get hurt? And I was like, no, what you said just actually, right? So even that kind of, I think like catches them a little bit off guard
Yeah.
and they kind of smile when they realize I didn't stub my toe and it was because, they said something in an unkind way. So I think that's what I kind of think of as like, not that I'm doing stand-up comedy when I'm trying to communicate something to someone, but there's this ease within my body as well as my
Yeah.
language
Right.
that is genuine.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that sometimes the people we care about the most get this skill the least.
I know.
And so it is something to say that it is nice to remember at times that to give this to the people who you care about the most and to a roommate that you have to get along with. And also sometimes when I think people can feel a little anxious if they're
Right.
talking with a professor or trying to meet someone new. So they might come across as really stoic, but to remember that this could be something to help get some of that anxiety out and not feel like and kind of look as sort of stoic or frozen. So to give more of that kind of easy manner and to act, act engaged can be helpful, even if it's about having, like the first time you're trying to talk to somebody you don't know, should I act like this? Should I act like this? Do I need to be more formal? That you can give with relationships that are professional too. And they can go a long way to making that person just feel that much more kind of willing to go the extra mile for you.
Right, right. And, we wanted to teach a skill because all these skills, oftentimes you're juggling them at the same time, right? If you really think about Dear Man, it rarely is probably going to work in a relationship that you're in if you're not using a little bit of give, right?
Yeah.
I can't imagine trying to agree to something that somebody wants when they're telling me that I'm a terrible friend
Right.
and I'm worthless, right? So hopefully now you have some more intel on some more skills that you can use to maintain your relationships at college.
Right. I'm going to add a little bit in case you want to put it in. I do also think that a lot of times people understandably have been told or have learned appropriately to stand up for themselves and to really set boundaries. And that is hugely important.
Mm-hmm.
I think at times there can be that people can forget that this can be paired with a gentle manner. So the next microdose episode we'll do is going to focus on that boundary setting. But I think I want to just put a little pin in that to say, are there times where you might be overdoing it and the boundary setting place and could infuse some of the give skills to make it a bit more balanced. All right, so part one, and we'll come at you really quickly with part two. So stay tuned for that one.
Goodbye.
Thank you to our guests for sharing their stories and their advice. This podcast is for college students, and we want input by college students, so please reach out by text, email, or voice memo to collegesfinepodcast@gmail.com or 929-500-2231. Tell us your story, give us tips on topics you'd like to hear, or give us feedback about an episode.
Follow us on TikTok and Instagram at College is Fine Podcast for episode announcements and resources. And last but not least, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast. Every hit of that plus button helps us keep going.